So, where does this race go now? I want to bring in Mark McKinnon, former advisor to George W. Bush and John McCain, as well as creator of The Circus. Julie Roginski is a Democratic strategist and co-founder of Lift Our Voices. Also joining us, NBC's Kate Snow, who watched this debate, sitting with some undecided voters. Kate and Julie are with me here in studio. Okay, Mark, going into this, we heard a lot of voters say they needed to know more about Kamala Harris and her plans as president and whether she could go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump. Do you think they got answers to their questions?
100%. I mean, mission accomplished for Kamala Harris. This was all about Harris, really. There was nothing that Donald Trump was going to do or not do that's going to really have an impact on voters. They're either with him or they're against him. People know Donald Trump. He's been around for 8 years, and there's not much we don't know about him. But 30% of voters going into the debate said they didn't feel like they knew Harris. So assuming that they tuned in, they saw somebody that, I mean, just we can go point by point, and there were a lot of things that you can say about Harris's performance. And from a debate prep point of view, it was a master class in accomplishing what she needed to do. But if you just pull back the lens and say, I don't know much about I don't know much about her, what do I see? Somebody cool, calm, collected, and somebody that looked really presidential. She looked in command. She was relaxed. I mean, that was the most tension-filled moment that anybody could face. And she looked like she was at a day on the beach in the sun, and he looked like he was in a hailstorm.
So, Julie, the Wall Street Journal board, not exactly a liberal publication, said she clearly won the debate, and they wrote this, quote, "She won the debate because she came in with a strategy to taunt and goad Mr. Trump into diving down rabbit holes of personal grievance and vanity that left her policies and history largely untouched." There are some other articles that pointed out she also timed it. So when he went on a subject where he's really strong and maybe an issue where she is not so strong, that's when she inserted things that managed to divert him by getting under his skin. What do you think about this strategy of getting him off track? And is it something that can move forward in this campaign?
You know, I want to do a shout out to Karen Dunn, who's the leader of her debate prep, because I've done debate prep with Karen, and I can tell you this is a typical Karen Dunn strategy. She always says you have to stick the landing, you have to stick the landing. Well, Kamala Harris stuck the landing on issue after issue after issue, and she did it by diverting attention from things that are not strengths of hers, right? So when she talked about, are you better off than you were 4 years ago, for example? She immediately pivoted to talking about things that drive Trump crazy, whether it's, whether it's crowd size, whether it's the fact that Republicans who he can't stand are endorsing her. And he immediately goes off on tangents because he's incredibly undisciplined. That's the difference between somebody who has the discipline to do debate prep and anticipate any kind of question, because that's what you're doing debate prep, and somebody who decided that this wasn't really that important to him, that he was going to wing it because he's a master debater, where there's a big difference between debating Joe Biden, who was not in the best shape of his life, and Kamala Harris, who's a former prosecutor, who's a former senator, who's a sitting VP, who's 20 years younger than he is almost, and somebody who's able to take it to him because she is disciplined, and she showed that. And that's what you need in a president, somebody who's disciplined, somebody who's able to rise to the occasion, somebody who's not going to freak out at the slightest provocation, and somebody who could really laugh at him. And that's what she did. She made him small. She diminished him, which is something that he can't stand and his voters can't stand. He wants to pretend to be this powerful, all-encompassing man. She made him small. She made him irrelevant. And that's something that I think was a masterclass in how to debate somebody like Donald Trump.
We know what the number one issue is, Mark, the economy. We learned this morning that inflation is cooling. August was the lowest annual inflation rate in 3 years. So I want to play a little bit of what the candidates did say about that topic. It was, in fact, the first topic out of the gate.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy.
They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
So she talked about the opportunity economy a number of times. He basically said, I did it once, I built a great economy, I can do it again. But do you think either candidate either carved out any new ground on this or convinced some people? Again, number one issue for voters consistently.
Well, I think she, at the very least, neutralized it. She talked about a specific plan for the future. Trump only talked about grievances about the past and what he'd done in the past. He didn't lay out any specific plan for the future, and she did. And she talked about the opportunity economy. She talked about specific plans. And by the way, in her closing, as you may have noticed, she had a killer closing line when she talked about how, you know, the question that she asked, not are you a Democrat or a Republican, but are you all right? And I think that's, you know, people may not think that she is perfect on the economy, but if they think that she cares about them and she's trying to do better for them. I mean, Trump always makes it all about himself. Harris, I think, did an effective job of making the case that she had plans and ideas that were intended to make it better for people across the country.
So, Julie, then there's abortion. Here's what was said.
This is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened.
You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that.
Julie, a key question going into this was, would Donald Trump say unequivocally that he would veto any national abortion ban? He would not say that, but tell me your assessment of what you think the impact of this was, particularly, again, there's a very small key audience here of undecided voters.
Well, it's not just undecided voters, it's also young voters, right, who may or may not be going to the polls, and this issue should galvanize them.
Will it motivate them?
It should motivate them because it affects them directly. And when Donald Trump said that this is an issue that was tearing the country apart, seemingly that he somehow solved this and now this has brought the country together. I mean, what has torn the country apart more than, as Kamala Harris said, watching women who desperately wanted a family, desperately wanted to get pregnant, getting pregnant and then not being able, as a tragedy, to carry that baby to term because they're having a miscarriage, bleeding out. Is that something that brings the country together? Is that something that brings those people together? Are those people better off now than they were under Roe versus Wade? I don't think so. I don't think anybody would say so. And so from that perspective, if you are a young woman or a man who cares about women, you understand what is at stake. That could be you. I mean, that could be you. This is not just somebody getting pregnant and deciding, oh, whoops, I don't want to carry the baby to term, although, frankly, they should have the right to be able to take care of that as well. This is about people who are in the kinds of marriages that Republicans constantly talk about, where they want more children, which Republicans constantly talk about.
J.D. Vance in particular.
J.D. Vance in particular, and
baby
suddenly
families.
they're not being able to do that because of the policies that Donald Trump espouses. It's disgraceful, and I think that was the strongest moment of the debate for her.